Hey, this is Roger Thunder. I just did a previous video on censorship, and also I put out that I wanted people to know that I'm going to be available on other platforms, BitChute, and then some other channels on YouTube because they're harassing me, and they could take the channel down or stop me from uploading videos or whatever. But I'm always going to put links to other resources for Roger Thunder. Okay, so today, this is maybe the reason they took my video down. They said it was because talking about COVID, but I've done other videos on that. But I'm going to do a video right now that's historical. Okay, and it's not only historical, it's information that you need to know. And I did this other video that I said got taken down, and it had a certain title. I'm not even going to mention that title in this video, but I'm going to create a new title having something to do with the counterfeit history of the world and how it was created, the counterfeit history of religion, the religion coupled with the world. And what I'm about to say is in no way any kind of racist thing. I'm going to qualify that right now. It's pure history. Okay. And there's no group of people being singled out. Um, it is what it is. And so the truth speaks for itself. I'll just say that much. But today I'm going to talk about the Bible. Okay. And I'm going to talk about scripture, and I'm going to talk about belief in the Bible. See, I was raised in a very strict fundamentalist background, and it had its good points and its bad points. The good points were is I learned a lot about scripture, and the bad points were it was very restrictive and guilt-ridden and fear-ridden, things that stay with you your whole life, and you have to work to vanquish them from your soul or your memory or whatever. And so, consequently, in vanquishing those things, you do a search and you search for truth. I've always been a truth seeker and a spiritual truth seeker. And I've always wanted to research things and check on them and make sure that they were hunky-dory, that they fit the bill, that they were truth. Because I've been lied to too many times before, as we all have. And one of the biggest lies, lies with religion and Christianity and the Bible and even Islam. Okay. So the reason that I say this is because of the control factor and because of the manipulation of the scriptures. Scriptures that you thought you didn't even question because it was quote unquote the Bible, right? You just bought into it. You bought into it in whatever form your religion is, and most people's religion is either Judeo-Christian, Christian, or Christianity or Islam. There's a lot of Buddhists too. I'm going to adjust this a little bit here. You got to get into origins, people. And so what you do, if you, let's say you're a believer in the Christianity or whatever, and it's based on the Bible. What do you want to do? Well, that's a book. It's an ancient book. Not that ancient, though. So you want to look into its origins, and you want to look into what the ideas, where the ideas came from in the writings of those books. So let's start here. Let's start with Hebrew scribes. Okay, Hebrew scribes. And let's follow that line for a minute. Hebrew scribes wrote the Old Testament. That's a mistake I made in the last video that I almost just made now. The Old Testament, not the New Testament. Hebrew scribes wrote it. Some people call Hebrews Jews, okay, or they just refer to them as a collective, the Jewish people. But they're Israelites, and there's a lot of tribes, and there's a lot of the tribe of Judah is actually where the term Jew came from. So Hebrew scribes wrote the Old Testament, and they started with, they went right down Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy. And they wrote it in a certain period of time when they were in exile. I want you to really pay attention to this because it's going to free your mind, or it's going to blow your mind. They wrote all these writings when they were in exile around in Babylon, in Babylonian exile. And I could go into a lot of detail here, but I just don't have the time to do that. So I'm just going to give you like a synopsis. And this synopsis is, and I'm going to try to make it simple so you understand it. The synopsis is, the Hebrew scribes wrote these original manuscript scrolls on papyrus and all these different ways. And what they were doing was they were researching when they were in exile. They really wanted to get into their roots. They wanted to find out where they came from. They wanted to find out more about God. And also they wanted to fulfill their priestly class and fulfill other roles of control. And so what they did is when they were researching, they researched the beginnings of history, basically. They researched the beginnings of history. And not only did they research the beginnings of history, but they stole from it, or they plagiarized. Maybe those are harsh words. Maybe I should just say they borrowed ideas and did a lot of creative writing. How about that? And these ideas most of them came from a civilization called Sumeria. The Sumerian connection. And this Sumerian connection had all kinds of writings on cuneiform tablets that were, I don't think they were unearthed till like the 1930s or something. But when they came to light, they blew everything out of the water. But see, they squelched it. They didn't let people know about these cuneiform writings from a civilization that was thousands of years, 4000 BC, I believe it was, before even the book of Genesis and the Adam and Eve concept were even written. And guess what? That concept, along with others, including the flood, were taken from earlier Sumerian writings that had a completely different historical bent. In other words, these older books were historical. They were the truth. The people had no reason to make up stories about history. They actually were proud of it. And so these Sumerians talked about all kinds of things. And they had all kinds of problems and things they faced. And one of these was the flood, of course. But see, the Genesis writers, the scribes, went in and took stories like the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is Sumerian, and they changed it. They messed with it. They made their own story, okay, and renamed people and did things like that. And so this Noah of the Bible and the flood is from an earlier time, but they really they twisted it a lot. And they twisted it in the form of painting a picture of God. Now the real God, the one that they had found when they were doing research, their real roots were in Samaria, and the ancient God of that time talked to their own patriarch Abraham. And Abraham is a patriarch for Islam and for uh, Israel, Jews, Christians. Abraham was the father of them all. Abram was his name, and he lived in this place called Ur, U-R, Mesopotamia. Right in the Middle East there, where all the Persian Gulf and all that stuff is, that was kind of the cradle of civilization. It wasn't kind of, it was the cradle of civilization. As far as languages and farming and all kinds of stuff. That's where Abram lived, or Abraham. And God came to him and said some things. And this God was called El Shaddai. Elshaddai, El Shaddai, who later became Yahweh. And this El Shaddai was actually, if you dig back further in the Sumerian text, was a part of a pantheon of gods that were known as the Anu, or the Anunnaki. And this is written about extensively in Sumerian culture. And by the way, when Sumerian culture appeared, it was far advanced. It was far, far advanced. It basically, what happened is there was like a gap in history where you had the Neanderthal man and the Cro-Magnon man that had achieved a certain intellect, not that much. They had only progressed through millions of years to reach a certain point. But what happened when Sumer and the Sumerians appeared? Well, civilization leaped incredibly. All of a sudden, this man that couldn't think too much or didn't have too much intelligence, all of a sudden men started appearing that were far advanced, that were into businesses and medicine and technical things and farming and inventions, entertainment. Everything leaped forward like overnight. How'd that happen? How did that happen? Where'd that come from? And this is fact, people. This is historical fact. Well, I'll tell you how it happened. It happened through the arrival of these Anunnaki. And they don't know where they came from. There are quotes from these ancient tablets that say, from the heavens they came, or from the heavens they fell. Okay. Anunnaki. And associated with these Anunnaki were actual vehicles of chariots of fire type things, where they were more like UFOs. So let's jump back to the Jewish scribes or the Hebrew scribes now. When they were trying to research their, make a god up or who God was or whatever, they took these Anunnaki, which were very high up gods type people who were actually actual people on earth, with the names of Enlil and Enki, different kind of verbiage, different kind of language, different, like almost like alien. So they went way back and they found that this was their roots, and eventually, and to make a long story short, just like they took the Epic of Gilgamesh and made it to suit them, and they took these earlier gods and people of Sumeria, and they took that idea, which wasn't an idea, it was real, and they decided that they were going to take certain characters and make other characters out of them, actually make one character out of several characters, a composite, and make it a monotheistic god called Yahweh. That's what they did. And so Yahweh became the Lord that you read about in the Bible, because that's what this stuff is based on, people. What you believe as Christians, what you believe as a Jew, what you believe in Islam, they all have their own twist of this, and it somehow it ended up to be a monotheistic God. And this God was kind of a cruel character. This God that they developed was very cruel. In fact, he was so cruel, and this wasn't, exactly what the original Anunnaki and Enlil and Enki and all them were about. Yeah, they were, they got angry and stuff, and yes, but they weren't just outright as cruel, I believe, as the God that the Hebrews made up, known as Yahweh. And even in their own writings, they called him different names before, like El Shaddai in the original translation. He's the one that appeared to Abraham and told him to go and made a covenant with the Hebrews. Now you see, are you getting the picture here? Because what they're doing is they're artfully creating. They took many gods and they formed it into one God, and then this one God came to Abraham and he made him a promise of a covenant between his people and them and the Israelites, which would eventually be the Israelites. So what they did is they handsomely crafted a story, and that story had some historical fact because they mixed history with fiction or made up stuff. And so this personage named Yahweh was very angry and jealous of other gods. So this is how they kept people from going to other gods or looking at a bigger picture. Are there many gods, or is there only one God, or where did God originate from? But see, they insidiously wanted to control people into thinking that they might be judged harshly. Why? Because the Israelites were always in trouble, and they were always getting captured by other people and taken into slavery and indentured servitude, and They had to make up a reason why this was happening to them, and it was because, and they always came up with this, it's God's will that these things happen. It's God's will. And God is punishing us for some king that bowed down to another deity or whatever. And not only did he put people through, according to them anyway, their writings, this supposed God put them through so much hardship, contradicted himself, and it is a him, they made it out to be, contradicted himself many times, got angry, and I'll tell you where one contradiction was. It was on Mount Horeb with Moses when he got the Ten Commandments. And God said, you know, in these commandments, thou shalt not kill, was one of the commandments, right? Thou shalt not steal, thou shalt not do any of this bad stuff. And what happens when they come out of the promised land with Moses? They're entering into the land of Canaan. They have to go through Jericho, and Jericho's a walled city. And so what did God tell them then? Well, he changed his mind. All of a sudden he said that he wanted them to go in and kill every man, woman, child, beast, infant, everything, scorched earth policy. This is what God told them, so that's what they did. You see the hypocritical nature of that? You see the when two scribes start writing a different story and they don't match up? Do you see what goes on here? Do you see? But I mean, and we're talking origins and talking Moses, and was he really Moses? And how long did he live in Egypt? And we're talking about Noah, and was Noah really Noah? And was there a Noah? Here's another one that's a big thing. And this fits into my discussion. They talked about the Hebrew scribes. Not only did they talk about Adam and Eve, that was out of character too. That was also taken from something else. They talked about the Nephilim falling from the fallen angels that came down and married the daughters of men. In other words, had sex with them. They looked good to these angels, so they came to. This is in the Bible. This is in their writings. That was a twist, okay. On these Nephilim were actually real people. They were probably the Anunnaki people. The ones from the heavens who came, the ones that appeared in Samaria. Okay. And these people were far advanced, and also they did do DNA manipulation. But the Bible writers painted it a completely different thing. It wasn't DNA manipulation. It was having sex with the daughters of men. You get my drift here? You get where I'm going with this stuff? I'll tell you where I'm going. It's about control. Okay, it's about control. And what do we see today? What was my previous video on? It was about censorship and control. And so what they did is they wrote these scriptures, the Israelite scribes. That was for their people. Or was it? Did they have a bigger agenda in mind when they wrote? What's going on? Basically, what the scriptures were written for by the scribes is to clarify 2 points. They're God Yahweh, and that they're God's chosen people because of this covenant with Abraham. They're God's chosen people. That was what the writings were really for. And there was no Bible back then. These were writings. These were individual books that eventually all got put together. So they had an agenda to keep the people in control and in fear of their God. Because Before then, in the history of the Israelites and that those people, they had different gods, but they all stemmed from the same God, Enlil, and it's all connected, people. So Enlil ended up becoming Yahweh, and Enki is um, associated with being a giver of knowledge. So what is that? They twisted everything around. They twisted everything around and made Enki bad and made Enlil good. But it wasn't Enlil; it was Yahweh and the serpent, probably. I think if as my further research is continuing, I will keep you updated. So what happened? What happened is the Bible got codified in 325 A.D. by Emperor Constantine, Roman Catholic Church Emperor Constantine, and he twisted it more. He took the books that he wanted that the scribes wrote, said, this looks like a good story. How can I embellish upon this? How can I add to it? How can I add more things to control people? And I'll even institute some pagan stuff to satisfy the pagans. That's what Emperor Constantine did. He made a Bible that later became the Bible that we know today. And there's all kinds of different versions, the Greek Septuagint version and the King James version and the Catholic Douay, whatever. But they're all the same thing. They all came from the same place. Why? Because they speak about this supreme deity. And this deity is somebody to really be feared. And you better do what that deity says, and you better do what your religion says. Religion became the deity. That's what happened. So what do most people believe nowadays? These Christians that don't even know where this stuff came from. They don't have a clue. All they do is say, my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, accept Jesus Christ as your Lord and Savior. And they don't even know what Jesus' teachings were based on. They don't know anything about the Old Testament. They don't know about origins. They don't know about any of this stuff because most people don't bother. Oh, it was the religion of my father and his father before him. Just like the people that go into the military. Oh, they were in the military, and so I'm going to be. That's how this world is working. That's how this world is working, off a lie, off of a counterfeit history. They bought into this one singular God, monotheistic God that is a fearful son of a gun. And boy, did he do some things. Even Job. Look at the story of Job. He afflicted this man that supposedly loved him, served him all his life, with horrible disease and boils, and took all away his family and killed off everybody. And why? Because he had a bet with the devil. The devil said, "Hey, I bet I can take this Job and take him away from you." Really, really, people, and God's going to let the devil do that to somebody for a gamble, for a bet? Think about it. Think about the inconsistencies. Think about the brutalness of that God, a warring God, a God of war. And we wonder why all these countries who say, I believe in God and in God we trust and God is with us, go to war. Because it's their concept of this horrible, vengeful, mean SOB of a God. This is kind of a synopsis here. And if you don't believe this stuff, if you don't believe what I'm saying, if you think that I'm just making all this stuff up, you need to do some research, people. You need to become somewhat of a biblical scholar. Because if you believe in something, you better damn well know what you believe in. You better research it. Because I think that that's what's causing the ills of the world today. Now we're going to connect this all up. And we're going to see how the powers to be, the governments, are using the belief of the people in the Bible, and they're claiming to believe in the Bible, and they're claiming to be Christians. And they're using that, this whole bogus counterfeit thing, to control people, to control you. Because you have a belief system. So what are they going to do? They're going to go, what is that belief system? Because they don't have a belief system. They're godless. They're void of any spirituality. What are they going to do? Well, they're going to look at what you believe. They're going to take the Bible and look at its history, and they're going to know exactly what I know and what I've been finding out. In fact, they're probably part of this split God line way back there with the Anunnaki, because there were some that wanted to destroy mankind, and there's some that wanted to keep mankind. And there's some that manipulated our DNA. They manipulated our DNA back then. So how does that play into what's going on now? How does that play into the tug of war we see between these two factions that supposedly are opposing each other, but really are on each other's side? It's a show, like the Trump-Biden show. How do we know that these two factions aren't following all the way down the bloodline and still at war with each other? And so this book, whether it was purposely conceived that way a long time ago, or whether these people are just using it because they have hidden knowledge, occult knowledge, any knowledge that's hidden, that isn't given to the public or is stifled, even archaeological finds or anything. It can be considered occult if it's hidden. So they know all this stuff, and they know all about what you believe. And they know all these people believe in the end times and all this stuff that was written in the book of Revelation, which is the New Testament. They're going to take this stuff and they're going to recreate it to scare the bejesus out of you, no pun intended. They're going to use it as a playbook. They're going to take all these prophecies in Revelation about the end times and the mark of the beast and blah, bitty, blah, 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 on and on and on. And they're going to use that to control you like they always have been, only in a more subtle way. So this counterfeit history of religion and the world to control is what it's for. So you don't know the real origins of God. You don't know how God was formed in the minds of people. You don't know the real history of what went down. You're enslaved to a certain belief system, a certain set of rules, a certain set of dogma that was set up for a reason, or that they used for a reason. You got to wonder, though. You got to wonder if something really deep didn't go down a long time ago, so that this Bible could purposely be used. These writings could purposely be used. But I'll rule that out for now because I don't have proof of that, not yet. I only have intuition, which is a good thing that you need to develop. So what we're seeing right now is a big control. And I'm not going to mention, let's just put it this way, what you see going on right before you right now in the world. And I'm talking about whether it's based on a pandemic or whatever you're seeing is for control. That's what it's for. And this battle still may very well be going on between two factions that existed way back in ancient Sumeria. Cro-Magnon man is not the man we got today. It's not you and I. Our DNA was manipulated so that we could become slaves. So mankind basically was a worker who worked for other people and was a slave to other people or a system or a government or a way of society. And believe me, this was established way a long time ago, people. A long time ago. Ancient civilizations that we know nothing about, that we're just now beginning to learn through archaeological digs. That's why they're so important. And that's why it's very important that the right people are being discovering these things. But these cuneiform tablets of ancient Sumeria and the real civilization and the real gods, I mean, these were the real gods, see. This is what the Israelites and the Jewish scribes, they copied stuff to make it one god. That's the bottom line. These were real gods, okay, real. Now, is there a supreme intelligence that created these lower pantheon of gods or aliens possibly from another planet that came here to Samaria? Whoever supplanted our DNA, any of that stuff. I know this stuff sounds far out, but people, it's true. It's history. History that's hidden from you. And why was it hidden? Why was this history hidden from you? There's a lot of authors that write about this. Come to think of them, some of them are dead. Which tells you a lot too, but there are people out there that report that are biblical scholars and archaeological scholars, unbiased, okay? They just study it. That's all they do, is they study it and they give you the truth about it. And they could be very high up in historical circles, even to the royalty. This is some of the books I'm reading that the author was even a historian for royalty. So knowing this stuff is going to change your life, because then you're going to realize that if it's all been about control and it's never been about you expressing your own self the way you want to and living your life and having your freedom, then isn't it going to change your outlook on life? Maybe it's going to make you more realistic about life. Maybe it's going to actually release a lot of burden on you, of guilt and fear. Maybe you're going to realize what agendas are all about. Maybe you're going to become enlightened to a certain degree instead of being used. And these people, these order followers that are censoring, they're being used. Okay, they're like attack dogs. They have no conscience. The people that are censoring and doing this stuff, and they don't care about their fellow man. They have either that, or they're just so deluded they don't even have a clue. Like most of the people out there wearing masks right now. So You need to think about these things, and I really did want to present this more in a historical fashion so that you would understand. And there's so much more. I mean, it's just the tip of the iceberg what I've talked about today. I could go on for another 2-3 hours telling you about other things that were written about in the scripture that are absolutely hilarious. I could actually quote places and do that, and sometime I might do a further video where I do that, where I quote Genesis and Exodus and do all that stuff and show you line by line where these silly stories and discrepancies and everything don't match up or don't make sense. And see, people do not. I can't emphasize this enough. People are controlled by this, but they know nothing about it. They're controlled by writings. They're controlled by religion. They're controlled by government. They're controlled by politics. And it's all been planned from the very beginning. We went into slavery way 4000 BC. Okay. So yeah, I think I'm going to kind of wind it up. It's going to be a long one. But I had a lot to say today because of this attack on me by YouTube. And again, this will be on BitChute, and it will be on several platforms. So pass it around when you find it, like it or do whatever. I do this for my fellow man. That's what I'm doing it for. I'm not doing it for money. If they take me down, I'm not doing it for ego. I'm doing it to help people. I'll leave it there. Adios.